What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr, and today I am bringing you a profile for the brand new TCG exclusive, the Ashened. Now these are based off of Pompeii and of course the very popular game Dark Souls. So with all of that out of the way, I'm going to be diving headfirst into the profile, but before we do that, please make sure you smash that like button. Getting a video above 50 likes will unlock more additional content either for Ashened or just Phantom Nightmare in general. So let's dive headfirst into the profile, take you through exactly what we've got, and then at the end of the video, I'll also take you through a very basic combo for the deck as well. So we're going to be starting off with 3 Yugioh, the Interruption, Dragon of Extinction. This is the main boss monster and currently the most expensive card of the entire deck. There is only one secret rare in this kind of core, and this is the one here, plus 2 ultra rares. So Yugioh, is during the main phase. If this card is in the hand, you gain a quick effect to target a card in either field zone to special summon this card to your opponent's field, and if you do, you destroy that card. Then you get to add to your hand or set one Ashened continuous trap from the deck. Unfortunately, we only have one continuous trap card at the moment, so hopefully when we get future support in the next core set of Legacy of Destruction, we're going to get a little bit more for it. If this card is sent from your opponent's field to the graveyard, you can destroy all monsters on the field. You can only use this effect once per turn. Now the reason it is a you can is very, very important is for the pure fact that you can choose to destroy the board or not. But the idea is that when you're going to be doing something like that, you're ideally doing it as an interruption to your opponent. In the aggressive nature off of the 1-card combo, you're going to ideally break your opponent's board and then build your board to hopefully push you through for an OTK. Moving on to the next main card of the entire archetype, and that is of course going to be Priestess of the Ashened City. I'm so glad this one wasn't a secret, because then it would be a little bit more tricky to get, because this card is basically the Stratos of the deck. So if Obsidian, the Ashened City, which is the field card, is in the field zone, you get to special summon this card from the hand. Now all of the Ashen monsters share that same effect. The one big thing that you do need to mention or do need to know is that Yugioh does not contain Ashened in its text, which is really, really important, or in its name to be more specific. You can only special summon Priestess once per turn this way, and then if this card is normal or special, you get to add one Ashened card from the deck to the hand. Now it's really important that that is why, you know, Yugioh doesn't actually include Ashened in it, and also annoyingly, the main spell card of the deck, which is your 1-card combo, also doesn't include Ashen in the text. Now, it would have been better if it did have that in its name, because then it would have made the deck so much more consistent and probably would have justified playing Bonfire a little bit more consistently. As you can tell, these are Pyros, but the only one that is a level 4 is, of course, the Priestess. So it's like if you want to be playing Bonfire in here, which is currently like £70, so £210 of additional investment, when you could just play Sakitama and Aritama to get into your rank 4 Banshee to search out the Priestess. So to me, honestly, right now, I'm not going to be putting Bonfires into this deck. Yes, I know it fits the theme of the deck a little bit, obviously with Dark Souls references, but I honestly don't think that it's worth doing right now, especially in a Droll format, when you're going to be going exactly Bonfire into Priestess, and then you're going to want to use Priestess's effect to then add a card. It's like, I'd much rather hard draw the Priestess than do it that way, so Triple Priestess, and then moving on to the next one, which is of course a super rare, is Triple King of the Ashened City. So if Obsidian, the Ashened City, is in the field zone, again you get to special summon this card from the hand for free. You can only special summon this card once per turn that way, and then during the main phase, during your main phase, you can special summon one Ashen monster from your hand except itself, or if your opponent controls a monster with 2800 or more attack, you get to special summon it from the deck instead. Now that's why it's so good, is because when you're giving your opponent a Yugioh, Yugioh is obviously at 2800, so it kind of fits the requirements you're going to need for King. Moving on to the next one, we've got Hero of the Ashened City. So if Obsidian is in the field spell, of course you get to special summon it, and again you can only special summon it once per turn. During the main phase, as a quick effect, you get to target a Pyro monster on the field and destroy it. Then if you destroyed Yugioh, the Emperor Dragon of Extinction, by this effect, you get to place the field spell from the deck into your field zone face up. You can only use this effect once per turn. Now obviously, again, the idea behind this is when you're giving your opponent Yugioh, if you're going first, you're going to be using this quick effect in order to pop the Yugioh to then nuke the entire board, so it's giving you more ways of being able to clear the board out. The reason we're playing it at 2 is because, again, I'm probably going more for an aggressive route of play, so that's where you kind of want to be a little bit more defensively. It's also where you kind of want to be able to break your opponent's board more consistently. I don't want to get the Hero of the Ashened on the board to then destroy the Yugioh to then nuke the entire board, because then I'm going to struggle a lot more to build my board back up in order to complete the OTK. We've then, of course, got Triple Obsidian, the Ashened City. Now, the reason you're playing 3 of this and not an additional terraforming is you can search this out of your deck very easily with most cards. The idea is that you want to be giving it to your opponent rather than giving it to yourself. So face up, special summon monsters your opponent controls become pyro during your turn only, which is a bit disappointing because again, it means that when you activate this, of course, it gives the ability for Hero to pop any of your opponent's monsters, but you ideally want all of your opponent's monsters to be pyro during their turn, meaning that Hero becomes more of a consistent interruption to deal with any of their cards rather than just the Vidos. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn. During your end phase, you can target one Obsidian, the Ashen City, in your graveyard, place it on the bottom of the deck, and then draw one card. If this card is in the field zone, is destroyed or banished, you get to special summon an Ashen monster from the deck. So it's very good in order to kind of get your cards out of the deck and move everything further forward, which is why it's such a good one card combo coming off of the back of the Awakening of Vidos. Now again, the biggest issue with this is that it doesn't actually have Ashened in its text. If it did, it would be searchable by Priestess. I feel that's the one big mistake that this kind of art type has done, and I don't feel that if this card was searchable, it would be that big of an issue, because personally, I feel that having it at like as consistent as possible would definitely have made this deck more consistent, more ideal for a player standpoint. So you get to place one of the Obsidian, the Ashen City, from the deck face up into either field zone, and then if your opponent controls a card in their field zone, you get to add a level 5 or higher Dark Pyro monster from your deck to the hand. So straight away you'll be able to search out the Vidos, and then you'll be able to push your plays further from there. For the rest of this turn, after this card resolves, you cannot special summon monsters from the deck or extra deck except pyro monsters. Now unfortunately there is only like a very limited amount of pyro monsters that are coming from the extra deck, so when you're activating a card like this, yes, by giving your opponent a field spell, it means you don't need to worry about Lightning Storm, Evenly Matched, or Imperm, which is really nice. But then on the flip side of that, you can't go into your extra deck. So hopefully again, trying to get a bit more excitement for the second wave of support for this deck, or even when the OCG get them, hopefully we'll get some Ashened extra deck monsters that just require one Ashened monster, and that'd be really kind of cool as well. The last Ashen card that we play is the one Ashened for Eternity. So this is the only continuous trap card you can set. I love the artwork on this card. I would have really liked to see this as a foil. Hopefully we'll get that in a future OTS pack instead. So when this card is activated, you get to add a Vidos, the Eruption Dragon of Extinction, or an Ashen monster from your graveyard to your hand. You can target one face-up monster your opponent controls that you own, take control of that monster, and then you can make all face-up monsters your opponent currently controls lose attack equal to that targeted monster's original attack. The attack chains last until the end of this turn, and you can only use this effect once per turn. You can only activate one Ashen of Eternity effect per turn as well. Or only activate one Ashen of Eternity per turn. So the idea is you're basically going to steal your Vidos back, which sometimes it's okay, but sometimes you really want it just to stay on your opponent's board, so you can then nuke it and then go again. For the draw power of this deck, I've gone with Triple Pot of Extravagance. Like I said, I've tried to build this deck to be as aggressive as possible, and you don't really want to be doing half damage to your opponent. You kind of want to be able to draw as many cards as you possibly can off of the best draw card that will allow you to facilitate that. At the end of the video, when I'm taking you through the extra deck, I'm going to show you 15 individual cards. Now, these can then be adapted. It's like if you want to play Prosperity in this place here, you can keep exactly the 15 that I'm going to show you. If you don't want to play and you want to play Extravagance, then I'll talk you through the ones you would want to maximize on. The idea is that you're trying to kind of present the OTK play through your Ashened monsters purely on their own, rather than relying on any additional outsource. However, with Pot of Extravagance, you do have access to other forms of additional kind of board breaking and board building in the stuff of in the place of stuff like Super Poly and of course Kashtira Fenrir. So obviously Fenrir is one of them great ones that if you do nuke the entire board, your board's completely clear. You just summon down a Fenrir, and then your idea is that you can build up from that point onwards as well. So Fenrir gives you that great capability. It's a great card going first, great card going second, and bar activating the quick play spell, Awakening of Vidos, you're not really locking yourself into anything too particular. So unless you're going to try and drop this during the draw phase, and the reason you try to do that is to try and trigger off effects you don't get hand trapped later on in the turn, you're probably going to be, okay, I'll hold this back, go into Fenrir, and then go through the back of the Awakening as well. For the hand traps, these are completely subjective to the local environment you're taking them to. If you want to play more board breakers, what I would suggest would be Triple Tactics Thrust, Triple Tactics Talents at increased levels, Lightning Storms, Dusters, you name it. But for now, we've gone with the generic Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, followed up by Triple Infinite Impermanence. You can play Draw and Lockbird, which I feel is probably... I kind of want to take Ash out for Draw and Lockbird and main it that way round, just because I do expect a lot of people to be playing a lot of hand traps, and then I also expect a lot of people to try and counter that strategy to be playing stuff like Triple Tactics Talents, and the last thing you want to be doing is you don't want to be going, okay, Ash Blossom, and they go Talents draw 2, or they go Talents look at your hand, or Talents steal one of your monsters. So you have to be a little bit careful, which is why I've decided to go down more of a board breaking route rather than an all-out monster hand trap lineup. So for the board breaking route, we do play triple Super Poly. Now, again, this can clash with your Awakening of the Vidos, and it can also clash with your Pot of Extravagance. But the idea is if you open this up, you kind of want to be activating this during the draw phase, completely negate your opponent's board or take your opponent's board out of commission by it being able to go into something like a Garura or a Mud Dragon, and then still in the draw phase, you activate your Quick Play Awakening. That means you can then still activate Extravagance at the start of main phase 1 without guaranteed losing any of your targets. On top of that as well, you can, if you do draw this off of Extravagance, that's when you're going to maximize out on your targets, your stuff like Garuras and Mud Dragons, just because they'll be the most generic for the format we're going into, and then you're going to be playing it that way. We've then, of course, got double, triple Tactics Talents, and I'm playing triple Forbidden Droplet. Of course, you can change this out if you want to. I wouldn't go for something like Dark Ruler no more. Like I've already mentioned, the reason behind this deck is that I want to be as aggressive as possible. I want to be building it to go second as an OTK style deck. You can look at stuff like Kaijus as well if you want to, but the idea is that I feel that Forbidden Droplet, considering that I can build my board off of one card, should be enough to help me negate cards and help me kind of break boards apart and everything else. Another really important thing about Forbidden Droplet, which happened during the Drytron format, is when you add a card, if you've got Forbidden Droplet, you have turn player priority. So as long as your opponent has a monster on the field that you can negate, you can, on resolution, activate Forbidden Droplet, send a monster to negate. It means that your opponent cannot respond to Forbidden Droplet with a Draw and Lock Bird because you searched that previous turn. So it basically lets you have that one search for free if you are completely worried about Draw and Lock Bird. It's something that you can try out and keep that in mind. If it is in any deck, not just the Ashen deck, but any deck you're trying to play, if you play Forbidden Droplet, that is one way that you can help negate or get past Droll on your first search. And then we're also playing Call by the Grave because, again, you need to be careful of stuff like Ashes and stuff like Drolls. You do have a little bit of space in here if you wanted to go down a complete crossout route if you really, really wanted to. Honestly, I don't think it's worth it. I feel that crossout takes out too much space in order to kind of really give you everything you want to, but it definitely does give you an option to kind of work yourself around and then, like I said, open up a bit of space so you can adapt it as you see fit and then kind of make it your own. If you want to play this more control, then by all means you can do that. Like I said, I quite like the idea of trying to turn Ashened into an OTK deck. I think is a lot more fun than anything else. And I feel that it definitely gives you a bit more versatility in order to kind of get to the end goal that you may or may not want. So that's it for the entire main deck. I'm now going to take you through the extra deck just to kind of show you exactly what we've got. Like I said, I'm going to show you 15 individual options, but you don't need to play all of these. You can actually adapt them, maximize them and everything else. And I'm just going to explain what ones we're playing and why we are playing them. So for our Super Poly targets, as it currently stands, because we do not have any Ashened or main Pyro monsters, you can pretty much play whatever you want. So I've got Dracus the Player, Mud Dragon, Garura. Now these two are probably going to be your best ones for the format going forward because I feel that if the format is going to be Voiceless Voice and of course going to be fire orientated, then stuff like Dracus the Player and Starving Venom are going to be less effective for clearing off your opponent's board and more effective for creating these during your battle phase in order to get the last little bit of damage off. So they'll still be useful for you in the Ashen strategy, and it's definitely worth doing it if your local environment is a little bit more rogue and there's going to be more dark monsters running around. But if you were like, okay, I'm playing Pot of Extravagance, I want to maximize my targets, I'd arguably be saying you're going to be looking at Garura and Mud Dragon as your most consistent options. Then for the XYZs that you can consider playing is Infernal Flame Banshee. Now, I'd only consider playing this if you're playing the Sakitama Aritama play, because they're technically like additional normal summons, and they don't really clash with your Awakening of the Vidos because they don't special, they normal summon. The idea is you'd get both of those, you'd overlay both, go into Flame Banshee, which is the Pyro, so you're not breaking the lock that you're under, and then of course Banshee gives you that ability to take a Pyro monster from the deck and either add it to the hand or send it to the graveyard. On top of that as well, if this card is banished and you control a Pyro monster, you get to special on this card, and if you do, it gains attack equal to that monster's, it gains attack equal to the number of your currently banished monsters times 100 until the end of this turn. You can only use each effect once per turn, but the idea is it's basically there for a searcher for Priestess. The other XYZs that we are playing, of course, is Zeus and Sky Slayer Typhoon. Now, again, the idea is that any of your monsters, you're like, the issue is, apart from Vidos, your main deck Ashen monsters in the form of Hero is 2600 is your strongest one, King at 14, and then Priestess at 12. So if you're able to special summon these down, as long as you haven't locked yourself into Awakening, you can upgrade your highest attack one into a Typhoon, and then you're good to pretty much bounce, negate the board, do whatever you need to. So none of them are going to be affected by the negation of the Typhoon, but it can affect your opponent, and it can also lead you into a Zeus for the next turn if you need to. For the Link monsters, we're playing a range of Link monsters. So I've gone with Pit Knight Earl for the pure fact that if you're going to go Vidos to like nuke the entire board, Pit Knight just guarantees you a way of negating that can constantly keep floating back from the graveyard, which can be very annoying. Heater, because obviously the fire format we're going into. Yes, of course, you do need a fire monster in order to make it. So you will need to have to make one of your fire monsters first, something like Infernal Flame Banshee, or just an Ash Blossom in order to go off. Now remember, as long as you've got the Obsidian City in the field zone, you can just special summon your Obsidian monsters. So you can actually maintain your normal summon for an Ash Blossom in order to do that. And that's going to be relevant for the Priestess that we'll talk about a little bit later on. Because we're playing XYZs and we're also playing fusions, you can play Cross Sheep if you want to, just kind of bring you back those monsters from the graveyard. And that's going to help you facilitate just more higher link climbs if you need to. We've then, of course, got the IP Masquerena. We do have Dart the Dark Charmer, just because there are times like you're naturally playing Darks anyway, and if people are playing the Snake Eyes engine, you can go into Dart the Dark Charmer, revive their Witch, and then build off the back of that. And then, of course, we've got SP Little Knight, because IP into SP, pretty standard. And then, of course, we do play the one Prynthian Princess, Bestower of Flames, alongside the one Swarm Ship Amber Whale. Now, as this is the first profile I'm doing with these cards, I'll explain them as they are, but in future ones, I won't go through them in huge detail. The difference is that with Bestower of Flames, it is just generic link free. However, you cannot special summon monsters except fire monsters while it is on the field. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn. So during your main phase, you get to special summon a fire monster from the graveyard. So the idea is, again, you'd bring back Ash, and it gives you instant access into the Amber Whale, as that is a link 4 that just requires 2+ effect monsters. On top of that as well, is if a monster on monsters is special summoned to your opponent's field while this card is in the graveyard, you get to target one fire monster that you control, which will of course be the Amber Whale, and one monster your opponent controls. You destroy them both, and then you special summon back the Bestower of Flames, which is a really nice kind of spot removal as you've gone up into the Amber Whale. So the Amber Whale, again, it gains 200 attack for each link monster in your graveyard, which at the point of making it, you'll probably end up having at least 2, so the Bestower and something like Heater. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn. If this card is destroyed, you get to target a link 3 or lower monster in either graveyard and special summon it, so you can bring back your own Priestess or you can bring back your opponent's Priestess. And then if a link 3 or lower monster is on the field, is destroyed by battle or card effect, while this card is in the graveyard, you get to banish this card from the graveyard to destroy one card on the field. So again, the idea is that Bestower can loop back and pop a card, but then so can Amber Whale can bring back and pop a card, like banish and pop a card. So you're getting like 2 different forms of board removal, which is why a lot of people are hyping this up, and it's why a lot of people are using this engine as well. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through the 1-card combo, which all comes off the back of the Awakening of Vidos. So the best thing about this is it can be activated in the draw phase, so it allows you to play around Draw and Lockbird, but you can also use it later on, depending on what else you have it in your hand. The biggest issue is the fact that it doesn't actually say Ashened in its text. It means it's not searchable via the Priestess, which is probably the biggest issue in my opinion, as I've already previously mentioned. So during the draw phase, we're going to activate Awakening of Vidos. This is going to give your opponent the Ashen City. In doing so, because your opponent got the City, you're going to be able to add the Vidos from the deck to the hand. You're going to be able to activate the Vidos. You're going to be popping the City to summon the Vidos to your opponent's field. In doing so, resolve your Vidos to get you the Ashened of Eternity, and then resolve the Obsidian Ashen City to special summon King from the deck. You'll then be able to trigger King's effect because they control a monster with 2800. You can special it from the deck, and you're going to special summon out Hero. You've got the quick effect of Hero to destroy the Vidos. Now this is why it's important, because it's a you can effect, so obviously at this point you don't want to be losing your board. In doing so, this will then allow you to activate the Obsidian, the Ashen City from the deck as well. During the end phase, the Obsidian of the Ashen City will put the one that's in the graveyard back to the bottom of the deck for free recursion, and then you'll draw one fresh new card. During your opponent's turn, you're going to activate Ashen of Eternity. This will allow you to add the Vidos back from the graveyard to the hand, and then you're kind of putting your opponent in a position of, if they are playing a field spell, you can activate the Vidos to destroy their field spell. Otherwise, you'd activate the Vidos to destroy your own field spell, still giving them the Vidos, but on top of that, you'll then be able to trigger off the effect of the Obsidian City. You could, if you really, really wanted to, you could go for a second King into a second Hero, or you just go straight into a Priestess. And then at least off of the back of that, Priestess can then give you a search, which means you've got a follow-up for the next turn as well. You've still got the quick effect of your Ashen City Hero in order to pop the Vidos. And again, if you wanted to destroy your board, you could do. You would be destroying your opponent's board at this point as well. But you would have the search off the back of the Priestess, so you can go again the next turn. And you would pretty much set up everything you needed to. So it's a very good position to kind of give you everything you need to. Hero of the Ashened will of course put the field spell in play as well, so that during the end phase you would just recycle the first one or the second one you've just used to give you an additional draw. So by the time you've done absolutely everything and you've searched off of the back of your priestess, you would have started off with 5 cards, one that you would have used in this combo. You would have drawn one during the end phase. During your opponent's turn, you would have searched off of the priestess, and then during the end phase you would have drawn off the obsidian, and you would draw for turn. So as you can see, you've got a lot of cards that you've drawn or added or searched or done everything need to. So once you've cleared your opponent's board off, you're then still able to have your field spell ready to go. So if you have opened up any of your Ashen monsters, you then have the ability to go absolutely ham. And then you also have the additional effect of the Ashen of Eternity that you can use during your turn as well. So it's really kind of cool, really powerful. I like the idea behind it. I know it's not complete as of yet. We're still waiting on more support, which will come out in the Legacy of Destruction. But I feel for a starter, it's definitely a deck worth looking into. And if the cards become crazy cheap, like I said at the moment, Vidos is the only one that's expensive, currently sitting at around about £17 a copy. If that does drop down, then it's definitely worth looking into, and that's something you can consider picking up. But for now, I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it's given you a very nice introduction and a breakdown to the Ashened archetype. If you do have any questions at all, by all means, please put them in the comments down below. I will be more than happy to answer them for you. But for now, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, as absolutely always, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.